Welcome back, Start the Think family. So excited to connect with you all again. If you are new to the show, my name is Rob, and I'm so glad you're listening today. In this space, we talk about side hustles and learn from folks who have been successful in the space, including chatting with folks who have turned their side hustles into full-time businesses. Today, we get to connect with Samantha from Mimi's Worms. Start the Think family. Please welcome Samantha to the show. Mimi, how are you?
I am good, and I am very excited to be here today. Got a lots to share with you guys.
And family, I have to say, I this is so exciting for me. My family and I had an opportunity to go hang out with Mimi and her family a few years back when we were living down in Valdosta, Georgia. We connected, and I asked Mimi if we could come hang out for the day and kind of learn a little bit about worm farming. And so excited for you to be able to share worm farming with us. But let's start from the beginning. How in the heck did you get started in worm farming?
Well, it's really a unique story. Me and my grandson, who was 10 at the time, we would go fishing every weekend, and we had not long moved to Lakeland, Georgia, which is just outside of Valdosta, and we just couldn't find any really lively, plump bait here. Everything was just half dead. It was nasty. And but it was expensive to go fishing every weekend. But that was my quality time with him when I would get him on the weekends. And so I was just like one day, Kyler, I think we can grow some worms. So when we came in fishing that day, I put everything in this little bin thing and threw the worms in there. And then I just jumped on YouTube and just started learning how to grow worms, because I wanted to grow them for me and him. And so I started these worm bins in these little old 10-gallon, 5-gallon, 10-gallon little totes that you get from Home Depot or whatever. And just progressed from there. I built this other shelf that went in my laundry room and quickly outgrew that. So we moved to my back porch. Now, at this time, I was a manager for Staples, so I worked long hours with them. And then I would come in at night and I would work my worm farm. And it was about winter time by this time, and we had closed in the back porch with plastic and built these upright bins, just had this brainstorm of an idea of, hey, I can go vertical and have all this extra space. And so my husband made me these. They kind of look like drawers that you pull out. And then from that, we outgrew that. So we started building hoop houses, which we built ourselves. Now, mind you, I didn't have extra money just to go out there and spend like some people do to start up a business. But I started thinking about my grandson, and, he's 10 and, he'll be 18 before you know it. And so I thought, well, I could start this little business for him when he gets out of high school. He'll have a little job. Maybe he can afford to buy him a truck through high school, whatever. And so I started looking at the market and seeing what this worm farming stuff was all about. And to my surprise, there's this huge market out there, but there's not a really big bunch of big growers. There's a lot of home growers, but there just wasn't any really big businesses, not to speak of. There are some, but just there was so much room to grow. And it wasn't just for bait, but there was the composting. There was people feeding, worms to their pets, and just all these different areas that you could move into depending on what you want to do. People that are gardening, you got the worm castings. So there was just this huge, huge market. And so I thought, this would be great. So we just continued to, trickle away, building the worm farm. And after about, I don't know, maybe a year and a half, we started, putting stuff on Facebook and kind of joining those groups and things like that, and just continuing to watch YouTube, and then trying to learn, how to set up a website, and, what kind of license do I need, all the things that goes along with owning a business. So we just started, moving into that, getting our license, checking on things that we needed and what have you. And so when we built our first little hoop house, that didn't last long. That was too small. So we built another huge hoop house. It was like, I don't know, 30 by 40. Outgrew that one, built another one. And then it was just like, oh my God, we just going to have to go into windrows. So we started putting them on the ground, putting them in windrows. And windrows is just basically like a crop, like a row that you would have if you were growing corn or something. And it's just got worms. It's like mounded up. And then if we would just start looking for all kinds of little things that you could make a worm bin out of. And it was so amazing at all the things you look around in your home and you find that, oh, I can put a coffee can. Oh, I can put a worm in that. These little throwaway bowls and stuff. We just had worm bins everywhere. If you remember when you came, we just had stuff everywhere and all these things. We had bags. We had so many different worm bins. It was hard to keep up with what we had. And then in 2021, there was a piece of property that came up for sale behind me, but that deal fell through. They couldn't get a clear title. So I started looking and found the warehouse that I'm in now. And so we purchased this warehouse, and it's 22,000 square feet. We have 4,500 breeder bins. We have about 68 4x8 grow out beds, which they multiply in as well. We just set up another 28 2x8 worm bins just yesterday. So we're steadily growing. About 3 months ago, I forgot to mention this to you, Rob, but about 3 months ago, I had a guy contact me and was wanting to get into the worm business. And as we were talking, he was like, I'd really like to just find somebody that I could grow for. And it was so awesome because, I was really looking at, oh my God, this is so much to try to keep up with, because there's just me, my granddaughter, and my grandson, which my grandson is the one I made the company for. He's now 16. But my granddaughter started with me about 3 years ago. And she has hung in there with me through thick and thin and really helped me build this business. And I can't tell you how grateful I am for her and for my family. But anyway, this guy, we're talking, God just opened this door because I was really wanting to, kind of scale back, but I really needed to be scaling up. And I'm like, okay, how do I do this? Well, I didn't know how. So God just opens this door, and this guy calls me up, basically saying, I want to grow worms for you. And so now we have a guy in Iowa who is actually growing worms specifically for Mimi's worms. And that same day, another person in California kind of did the same thing, only they were already set up growing and all. So we actually have 2 people growing for us. And we're still scaling here. But we're not scaling as much here as we were. We're really trying to just branch out and, find people who want to grow for us and do it that way rather than us having to hire more people, because employees can be very expensive if you can find them these days. And we really want to keep our business here family. And so I'm kind of having to wait for some of these kids to grow up. And as God would have things happen, Kyler actually, which is the one I started the business for, he actually came to live with me about 1.5 years ago, through some unforeseen circumstances. And then his brother and sister, who are no relation to me, fell into the foster system, and the rights had been terminated to the parents. And these kids were going up for adoption. So we stepped in, and because we didn't want our grandson's brother and sister going to God only knows who and where, and him losing contact or whatever. So my husband and I stepped in and we adopted them, and we're in the process of adopting them. It's a long process, but it's going along. But so they are now part of
Yeah.
our family and will be part of this. And they love the worm business, so they'll be a part of it.
Great.
And Kobe's 9, and he already helps us too. He comes in this summer. He spent a lot of time up here helping us. And Natalie, she's 5, and believe it or not, she can help shred cardboard. She helps me grind food. It's funny to watch them. So they're happy, and that's all that really matters to us, is giving them a chance in life to to take something so dramatic happen to still being with their family and their brother, and and loving them and being a part of their lives. So they were always like my grandkids anyway, because I would pick them up when I'd pick Kyler up. So it's
That's
been
awesome,
fun.
man. So what an awesome story of growth, of how something came from, hey, we're gonna solve this problem of having kind of bad bait for fishing, to where you're at now. And so you shared a lot about that growth and what that looks like. For people who may not know, how do you actually generate income from worm farming? I think most people know the sales of the worm, maybe for fishing, but how does income in worm farming kind of happen?
Well, originally we did start out growing for bait, which we still do. But in 2020, of course, when COVID hit, everything changed. So many people went to growing their own foods. They had more time at home. They needed things to fill up their day. So they started growing gardens and things, getting back to nature, just getting back to the land. And so composting worms is what we really ventured out into. And we actually had, in June of 2000 and, 18, 19, somewhere along in there, I had someone put out an email looking for someone to drop ship for them. And I was like, hey, I'll do it, and they wanted to give me the East Coast. And I was like, no, if I'm going to do it, I want to do the whole thing, and they thought that was so cool that, somebody wanted to had that much, brass to them, that they'd say, no, I want to do it all. So they gave me a try, and then they didn't look back, and we just kept going. So from there, we just marketed, doing a lot of email marketing, revamping my website. I had to learn how to ship. So we ship all over. And, in the beginning, we lost shipments because we didn't really know how to ship. We were trying all these different things. And I had a friend, kind of coach me on what I needed to do to ship. And now I teach everybody else the same thing on how to ship, so that you don't have them done. I mean, we still have some that just don't make it in shipment, but we do offer a live guarantee. We don't want somebody to pay for something that they don't get. But we do have some stipulations that they need to do as well to ensure that they get a live delivery. So you just couple that with great customer service, and, probably fixing to have some loud overhead. But you just couple that with, just really good customer service, and treat people the way you want to be treated. And those customers come back. They tell other people. Of course, they're out on social media talking about you. When, so many times in some of these groups, somebody will say, hey, where can I buy worms from? It'll be Mimi's Worms, Mimi's Worms, Mimi's Worms. I mean, just everywhere you look, it's Mimi's Worms. And so that it's just word of mouth. We really did not I haven't paid for any advertising. We have advertised like on Facebook. And when I say advertised, just talked about our business, answered questions for people. People has recommended us and stuff like that, but actually paying for ads and things, we have not done. So the majority of our business has been built on word of mouth. To the tune of, we did about $500,000 last year. So we're on target to do about $1 million this year. And this is pretty much just worm sales. We are venturing this year into the castings, and We also have about 250 affiliates. Now, out of that 250 affiliates, only about 15 of them actually do anything. And that's where they, are out there talking about you, advertising for you. And then if somebody clicks on their link, they, revert them to us, and then they get paid for each sale they make. So that's another way to produce income, is through affiliates doing the marketing for you and talking about you and stuff like that. So this year we are getting more into...
Well, and you mentioned too,
Yeah, this year we're getting more into the paid stuff, that now that we can actually afford it. We probably should have afforded it first and really built that. We kind of started out backwards, but either way, we've made it pretty good, and in a short amount of time, I feel like, God has just really blessed us and opened a lot of doors for us. So I think just being true to people, being honest, and having a lot of integrity will probably take you further than anything else. And that is something we hold true to, is being truthful and a lot of integrity.
Yeah, the other thing I think you said too is there's a good market for it, which you were able to identify early on, that hey, hey, I want these for fishing, but all of a sudden I get into it, I start a little bit looking around, you're using your resources and go, hey, this may be something. And there's been a lot of success. I'm already hearing that, which is great. But I also imagine there are probably a couple of challenges, especially early on in the game. One or two challenges maybe stick out to you that you had to overcome. And if somebody's, thinking about doing this as a side hustle, some wisdom maybe that you can share.
Sure. So, and that's a really good question, because a lot of people do get into this thinking they're going to become rich overnight. They see our story and they're like, oh my God, I want to be her. I want to do what she's doing. But one of the challenges early on for me was, I had this full-time job. And when I say full-time, I'm talking 50, 60 hours a week, because I was a manager. And then I have this business I'm trying to grow over here. Where do I find all this time? So, you give up a lot. You give up sleep. You give up time with your family. You give up, things that maybe you wanted to go do that you can't. I worked Christmases, Thanksgivings, all these every day, every single day for 3.5 years. I did not take a day off. And a lot of people aren't willing to do that. But if you want to be successful, you have to put in the time and the work. The other challenges as far as the business goes is you're going to lose worms. And you're just learning, how much moisture, the temperature. You can make one simple little mistake and you can kill all of your worms. And so we learned early on that, if we had a big drop in the temperature, when we're going from fall to winter here in Georgia, it's like overnight. It's not a gradual thing. It generally just goes from hot to cold, and you're like, oh my God. So you have to be prepared for that and know that when that happens, you have to be prepared to take care of the worms. So I'll give you, for instance, we had that happen a few years ago when we were still in our backyard and we had European night crawlers in a hoop house. And I remember that day that the temperature dropped really fast. And I thought to myself, wow, that temperature dropped fast. Never thought nothing of it, because, we would run a heater in the greenhouse or the hoop house in cold times. And about 2:00 in the morning, my eyes popped open, I'm wide awake, and it hit me. Oh my God, the temperature had changed. I run out to the hoop house in my pajamas, and I have worms everywhere. It looks like somebody exploded a pot of spaghetti in that building. I woke everybody up in my house. We were out there collecting these worms up at 2:00 in the morning. Took us to about 4:30 to gather up what worms we could. Of course, we lost some. But it was a big lesson to learn. When that temperature drops real fast, that you got to be prepared. Then, feeding your worms. Overfeeding them is one of the biggest things that a newcomer does. And so if you have new food that you're bringing in, because, worms can eat all types of organic material, whether it be, dairy manure, gin trash, peanut hulls, fruits and vegetables. Most everybody starts out as a home grower, and they feed them a lot of fruits and vegetables and things like that, which we still do in our bins that we have at home for our own personal use. But on a much larger scale, you can't get that unless you have, some kind of system in place where you're going and collecting from restaurants and stuff like that. We just don't have the manpower to do that. But you certainly could if there are people out there that do that. And but one of the things that happened to us back in November, now we're already established. We know what we're doing, right? But things can still happen. So in our warehouse, we had windrows, and we had them, this warehouse, when we got it, it was an old fish hatchery. So we have some concrete paths, but in between is just dirt. So once we pulled all these big bins out that had the water with the fish and all, that were in them. Once we took all that out and covered up, where they were, it left it with a belly in it, Well, we didn't have the money to haul in dirt, so we just built our windrows. And the very first weekend that I ever took off in that 3.5 years of starting my business, I was gone from Friday to Monday. Now, normally I would come up on the weekends and, do some work, check on everything and all that. But this particular weekend, I made a vow to myself. I was actually going to take a weekend off, was not coming up here. I was going to take some time to myself. We came in on Monday. Our water is overhead. I don't know what happened, but one of the ends or whatever came off the pipe, which is a 2-inch pipe. And from Friday's, assuming, till Monday, from the looks of the building, water had been just pouring in. Needless to say, it drowned every worm we had. And I'm talking millions of worms, tens of thousands of dollars, just gone. Now, to say that I was devastated is, I literally broke down. I cried for 2 weeks. Didn't know if I even wanted to do it anymore. I was just, all those years of putting in all of this hard work, no days off, to take a day off finally and have this happen was just devastating. But after my husband let me just get over the initial shock and do my mourning and all of that, he finally said, "Honey, this is what you love doing. And it's unfortunate this has all happened, but you just need to tighten up your straps and get back out there and get back at it." And I was like, I couldn't think of anything else that I wanted to do but grow worms, So that's what I did.
Yeah.
And, now they're up off the ground. We hauled in crush and run, which is kind of a crushed up cement, and smoothed all that out, packed it down, and then we built vertical bins for our breeder bins. And anyway, so we got it all set back up. Cost us a lot of money, but and that's why we're still having to set up now, because we lost so much then, to replenish all that. Because again, we don't have just money laying around. Even making the money we do, there's a lot of money that goes out. And that's what, when you first get started and you're selling more than you can produce yourself, which is in our case and still is today, we still have to buy in some of our worms. So, there's a lot of money that goes out. A lot of people think, at $79 a pound, you're just making $79 every pound that you sell, and you're putting all that in your pocket, but you're not. you're putting a portion of that in your pocket by the time you pay everybody and you pay your bills, which I'm a frugal person. So I have built this company without going into debt other than the warehouse. So, we just have the daily bills to pay. We don't have payments on equipment and all that kind of stuff. We do everything really by hand with wheelbarrows and pitchforks. We do have a forklift that, thank goodness, God just blessed us with it. But, we try to keep it very debt-free.
Love it. That allows you to overcome some of those challenges, like you talked about in November. Let's look at getting really, really practical for a moment, Mimi.
Okay.
I wanna kind of jump into somebody's listening. They're thinking about side hustles, kind of a thing, and they're like, this worm farming thing sounds cool. They go do some exploration, that kind of stuff. But you've been living this for several years now. What would be your recommendations? Your 2 or 3 things that you would say to somebody who's considering worm farming as a side hustle that they would want to kind of think about to get started?
So I would tell you, if you're the kind of person who most of us are, you don't have a whole lot of money, and one of the things that I do find with people a lot of times is they put the cart before the horse, kind of like I did in the beginning. I started growing these worms, putting all my money into worms before I even knew if I could sell a worm. So one of the things that I really recommend to people is become an affiliate with someone. It doesn't have to be us. It could be anybody. And get your hand out there and learn how to market first. Build your audience before you ever start trying to pour money into growing worms. And the reason for that is because if you take all the, $100 you have, let's say you have $100 to spend, and you put that into worms, well, you could have took that $100 and put it into marketing, and you could already be making some money back on that $100. Where if you're spending it on worms, you got to wait for those worms to multiply, which is, at least 3 months. Now I'm not saying don't buy a pound or 2 of worms to start learning about them, start making those mistakes that you're going to make. But I really feel that some people think they have to have worms in order to sell worms physically. But there is some of us out there that do affiliate marketing. And we will bring you in as an affiliate. We let you, go out there and do whatever you want to do. Build your audience, and we ship the worms out for you. We handle all the customer service when it comes to the worms. We answer everybody's questions when they have them, because you're new. You're not going to know those answers. When somebody comes to you, especially with a complicated answer, you're just getting started. You don't know a lot about the insects in the bins and how that, if they're beneficial or if they're not. So you're not going to know those things. So it's going to overwhelm you. And so I would tell you, start immediately marketing. Learn that, know what you want to do. Then start looking into what type of license do you need. Really getting your business set up. If you know this is what you want to do, treat it like a business. Don't treat it like just a small thing. You got to know where you want this business to go. Now, if you just want it to be a little thing, that's fine too. But I want you to know there's a lot of growth out there. There is a lot of space out there. I'm not afraid of competition because I know there's a lot that, out there to be made. And I know God's got me. He's going to take care of me and my family. So one of the things that we offer to people is our knowledge, and we help people all the time, learn this side hustle or learn this business if you're wanting to learn. So that's the very first thing that I would do is I would find someone to become an affiliate of, let them do your worm shipping and all that. You go out there and either Facebook, Instagram, TikTok, Craigslist, Google Ads, whatever it is that you want to do. Maybe you're a great blogger, and you want to blog. There's other things besides worms that we carry that you could, include in that. And that's the great thing about affiliate marketing is when somebody comes over to your website, it doesn't matter if they buy worms, they buy thermometers, they buy a worm blanket, whatever they're buying, you're getting a commission off all of that. And we have never missed a commission date. We pay once a month. We pay on the first of every month. And we treat your customers like they're our customer. And, people are like, well, I don't want to do affiliate marketing because I'm giving my customer away. Let me tell you something. When people buy worms once, maybe twice, that's pretty much it. They don't generally come back more than that. So if they're wanting to buy worms today and you don't have them ready, they're not going to wait on you. They're going to go buy them from somewhere else. So why not make the money off of that customer when they're ready? And that is something that I was a same thinker. Well, I'm going to give my customer to somebody else, but you're really not, because people only buy worms once or twice normally. You scraggly every now and then you'll have somebody that'll lost their worms and come back and buy again. But so that's probably
it's interesting too, because what you're also doing is minimizing the risk.
Exactly.
You're minimizing the risk with the affiliate component.
You got to replace them. You have to replace them. If you're not offering a live guarantee, nobody's going to buy from you, because everybody knows it's tricky selling worms online. So if you don't know how to ship, you can really get yourself in a lot of debt real fast. The second thing that I would tell you to do is start small. Learn, make mistakes, and don't go out unless you have a lot of money to do this. I didn't, but if people are looking for a side hustle, they probably don't either, is don't go out buying a lot of stuff or expensive stuff anyway. Find things that you have around the house, repurpose those things. Because, one of the things about worm farming is a lot of it is about sustainability and helping, to keep stuff out of the landfills and things. So if you can use anything that you would normally throw away, you're helping contribute to saving our earth. And so that's another big thing about this movement that we're in, especially now. I see the worm business, the composting business, the gardening, all of this is exploding because we're living in some peril times in our country, and people are scared. And so they're learning to garden. They're going back to, wanting to live off the land instead of being, bound to big companies and big pharmaceuticals and, big corporations. They're tired of paying $10 for a dozen of eggs, I really got sticker shock the other day. A tub of butter that I normally pay, maybe $1.98 at the most, was $9. It blew my mind. I was like, man, I need to get a dairy cow.
That's wild.
So
yeah, no kidding.
I think that's
funny.
I think that's what's really pushing this movement. This past year we had the fertilizer shortage, and petroleum shortage, which is what fertilizer's made out of. And, so people are moving into more organic gardening. And so the castings side of things, which for me, it's a byproduct because I focus on growing and selling worms. Now, a lot of people in this business focus on producing castings. And I will tell you this, you do need to decide which way you want to go, because it's hard to be great at both. And that's what you want. You want to be great at one of them and let the other one be your byproduct. So that's what we did. Unless you have two different facilities and you're, have personnel to run two different facilities, because your setup's going to be different. So, and we could get in more of that, which you can if you go to our YouTube channel, and we teach you all these different things, so that's another thing is we do have a YouTube channel We have a good following on that. We've actually helped some people learn from our YouTube channels that are now doing their own YouTube channels, and hey, they have more subscribers than I do. So, it's I,
Yeah.
I'm big, but there's still plenty of room.
Always room for growth, that's for sure. This is a good segue, Mimi, into a segment we like to do here on Start the Thing called Thank a Mentor. This is kind of an opportunity for our friends to give a shout out to somebody who's been supportive along the way or that you've learned from. Is there somebody that comes to mind that you want to give a shout out to today?
My biggest shout out, Rob, would number one be to God. He has given me the know-how, the discernment, the opening of doors for me. He will always be my number one. And outside of that, my granddaughter has been there. My family's been there for me. They've been my biggest supporter. My sisters don't live near me, but my sisters, believed in me from right in the beginning. My family's always known that, and because I have tried a lot of things in my life, I always knew that I wanted to run my own business. And I've had some very successful side hustles, but nothing to this magnitude. But my family always believed in me no matter what I was into. And, and because I had tried so many, sometimes my children, because they were younger back when, I was doing these things and they were hustling and helping me, and then it would not do well or whatever. So, I've had one or two of my children be like, oh God, it's just another one of mama's things, but now they're starting to see, oh my God, and I even say, oh my God, because I never dreamed,
Right.
in all honesty, that this business would be where it is today, because it truly was something that I thought my grandson would just make $200 or $300 a week at, just to get him through high school, maybe college or whatever. But for it to be where it is, and it's going to be handed down to generations upon generations, because I see a tremendous future for worm farming and vermiculture and composting and people growing their own gardens and their own, so I just really have to give a shout out to my family for their support.
Love it. Love it. Love it. Love it. Love it. All right. This is my last question for you. Okay. And this is, and I'm confident you'll have an answer, which is, what are the things that you're going to continue to do to grow your business?
Oh, that's easy. So number one is always having integrity, being honest, and great customer service. Without that, you're not going to have a business long. You may start out and, but if you don't have that in your tool belt, you might as well just not even start. If you've ever gone to a restaurant and went to hand them your card to pay for your order, and they're looking the other way with their hand stuck out the window, talking to somebody, not even acknowledging you, it makes you not ever want to go back to that place. But when you have that experience where, a customer is just happy to see you, they're willing to, go the extra mile for you, you want to go back, and you tip well, and, it just makes all the difference in the world. And because we do live in a world today where there's not a lot of really good customer service, it really don't take a lot. So when you give really good customer service, it really leaves an impression on people, and it makes them not want to go anywhere else. And one thing that I have found through my life, because, I've been in sales for a long time, and through honesty, you may lose a customer initially by being truthful and honest with them. And I'll give you an example. I used to sell furniture, and I would always be honest with people. And, if they were looking at something, and I would always find out what type of customer they were. Were you a customer that liked to change your decor every year or two? Or were you a customer that liked to have, something to last 10 or 20 years, or maybe hand it down to another generation, that would determine what brand of furniture you wanted to buy. So, you always have people coming in wanting the cheapest furniture in the store. But that cheapest furniture in the store is really for someone who swaps out furniture every 2 to 3 years because they want to change their decor. Because if you want for instance, a sofa, if you want a sofa that you can hand down for generations to come, which is the kind of person I am, my sofa that I had at the time was a Clayton Marcus sofa. It was 8-way hand tied, very well built. I still have that. It's been 20 years ago. It still looks like it did the day I bought it. But it was just for the sofa 20 years ago was $3,000. So that's a lot of money. You could also buy that, sofas for $400, but they weren't going to last you very long. And so I would lose customers by being honest with them that this was a cheaply made suit. But then they would go somewhere else and a salesperson would lie to them, That customer would wind up coming back a year or so later and saying, I came in here a year ago and you were truthful with me. And I went somewhere else because, I didn't know. And, but I do know now that you're a truthful person. So you'll always have my business. And I was very, very good at selling furniture. Yeah. But that's what I've always done, is been honest with people. And I have a lot of integrity. So I think that is your main thing.
Yeah, and you mentioned before too that a lot of your success has come from people being willing to be the word marketing for you. They're marketing because they like you, they know you, they trust you, right? And a huge component of that is that trust component. And when you're fair, when you're honest, when you're responsible, you give good customer service. That's when you're seeing folks who are more than willing to give that benefit of the doubt. And when people are asking, hey, where do I get worms? There's no hesitation. If you need worms, you go to Mimi's Farms, or Mimi's Worms, sorry, and you get your worms. So I love it. All right. So Start the Thing family, as we like to say, we go faster, we get better, and we have more impact when we learn from one another. Thank you so much, Mimi, for coming into the show today and sharing your wisdom around worm farming, and just for being genuinely authentic and loving on people. Thanks for coming in today.
Thank you, Rob. Thank you for having us.
Absolutely. And friends, if this is one of your first times watching the show, we would love for you to like and comment and subscribe. And certainly we hope you will join us again in a future show. Everybody, have a fantastic day and get out there and get hustling.
Thank you.